I wanted to do something a little bit different and look into a celebrity's house in LA. This one is owned by Kendall Jenner and it was designed by Clements Design, which is an interior design company based in Los Angeles, and they're internationally recognized. I mean, these guys, it's a mom and her son working in the company, which I think is already pretty cool to start with, are so sought after. Then on their website there's one image and one contact form. That is it, not showing their portfolio, not dropping names of who they've already worked for, even though they have a lot of names to drop. They're not even trying to convince you because they probably have a huge waiting list of people wanting their design services. That's pretty impressive to get to that level of success. So here I made a rendering of what I would have done in that space, not meaning that my approach is better, it's just different. It's like doctors. You go to see 5 doctors, they're going to give you 5 different opinions. Same with interior designers. The difference is I haven't had a conversation with the client, the owner of the house, Kendall Jenner. So it's just based on my idea of a young woman who's in a creative industry, and what I would have done based on my experiences and my taste. I don't know anything else about her. So let's start with the structure. The structure is dark wooden floors, which we call espresso in the hardwoods industry. This color is very present, so it has to be taken in consideration in the color choice of the items that'll come fill out the room. I wanted to keep the dark wooden beams as well visible and put an emphasis on the windows that are dramatic and Italian inspired. So usually I'm all for drapes. I will always say never keep your windows bare, but the windows here are so beautiful and are such an architectural statement in themselves that you need to just keep them as is. And also, it's a social room, it's a living room, so it's not a room where you're going to need darkness. If these windows would have been in a bedroom, my approach would have been different. Then we have the furniture. So let's start with the foundation, the rug. The rug here is from Deirdre Dyson. It's a light rug, it's beige, but I wanted something with character. As when I look at the design that was made in that space by Clements Design, it's not the typical LA model girl design that I would have thought of without going into cliches. There's a little bit of depth and vintage pieces and almost like an old soul living there, which I really like. So I didn't want to just put light furniture that's nice and boho and have a little bit of an edge. So what I love about this rug is that it's light. It contrasts with the dark floors. But you see the lines on the side, the brown lines, and it kind of looks like burnt paper. That's the rim of burnt paper. And I love fire. I love the idea of destruction, so this is perfect. The rug is made out of wool and silk to bring coziness and comfort, which is what you want to have in the living room. You can imagine walking barefoot on that rug. On top of this rug, we have a sofa. So as I mentioned earlier, since we have dark wooden floors and dark wooden beams, I wanted light colors, and also the owner is young and in a creative industry. She's a model. So I thought we would make the space fun and young. I also want to walk in the space and have kind of an impression of who the owner is. So for the sofa, I wanted something comfortable, hence the deep proportions, the chaise where you can elongate your legs, and a soft velvet texture. The sofa already has 3 back cushions on each side, so I didn't want to add any extra throw pillows, but that's a cultural difference. The US loves to put throw pillows, whether it's on a sofa or on a bed. For me, it's just inconvenient. It's like there's a scene of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David walks into his bedroom where he's living with his wife, and his wife tried to put something nice together. And he says, "How many pillows do we need on our bed?" It's kind of how I've always felt walking into hotels or public spaces in the US. So here's a picture of the sofa, so you kind of see all angles of it. I also love the fact that the sofa is directly on the floor, which is what I was looking for in the design of this space. It has no legs, so it gives it a more relaxed vibe, an invitation to chill because you're closer to the floor. Then we have the coffee table. The coffee table for me has more of a decorative purpose. Originally, it's to put some drinks on the table, some coffee, hence the name. But it's usually low, close to the ground, so you don't use it that much. So um, the bigger the coffee table, the more stuff is likely to accumulate on the table, and I really don't like stuff. So the coffee table here is to connect the two sofas so there's not an empty space in between. It's an opportunity to make a decor statement, and here I chose the inverted gravity piece of Mathieu Lehanneur, who's a French designer, where it looks like the fragile glass part supports the heavier looking top. Then you also have the side tables. Now, my favorite piece when it comes to furniture in this space are the side tables. I'll show you pictures here so you can see the difference between the original picture and the rendering. There's always a little difference. They also have a purple highlight to them, so it reminds you of the top of the coffee table. And it's in acrylic, so it looks like big, chunky ice cubes. And I wanted a contrast with the fireplace and the mostly hot weather outside since we're in LA. Then on the back of the room, on the left side, when you're facing the fireplace, you have sconces. The sconces here are just two little pieces of jewelry for me. It's made out of Murano glass. It's Italian. And they look like earrings, so it's a little wink to the feminine energy, the fact that it's owned by a woman. And that area also might need a little extra lighting because it's in a corner, it's on the opposite side of the window, and I also chose to place a wooden sculpture in front of it, so you want to have some lighting to see that sculpture at all times of the day. Then we have on the wall close to the windows a buffet or sideboard. It's the same thing. I always love a touch of exoticism. That's a reminder of either North African art or sub-Saharan pieces. Here for me, the buffet, even though it's from anthropology, it kind of has a Moroccan vibe to it with the carved wood and the brass accents. Then we have the plants. I cannot live or design a space without any plants in it. And here, I chose to cap the trees that the original designers put in there because I love what they chose. And I added another one in the corner on top of the stairs because I feel like it needed more plants for me. The more the merrier, even though there's a lot of nature outside, it seems. And think of proportions. If you have a large space and tall ceilings, don't hesitate to put trees. You're not just going to put a little cacti and succulents and call it a day. Let's talk now about my favorite part, the arts. When I'm designing spaces, I can't wait to choose the art, whether the owner already has art that I have to work around or is willing to purchase art. It's so exciting. So here, since I chose neutral colors for the furniture, and when you have people who want to invest in art, I'm assuming the owner here, since she probably has a budget and she's in a creative industry, she has an interest in art. You want to put the emphasis on art by keeping a neutral decor, and then you can have fun with paintings, with sculpture. So again, my concept around interior design is fun and warmth. So here the fun and warmth come from the paintings with the shapes, the symbols, and the colors. And you'll notice we have mostly bright, inviting colors. Let's start with the first piece right above the Moroccan-inspired buffet is a painting from Wayne Thiebaud. It's called The Dessert Tray, and it was painted in the early 1990s. I love this painting because of so many aspects. It represents comforting food. It's also a symbol for me of celebration. There's pieces of cakes. Maybe it's coming from a buffet, from a wedding, from a birthday. So it's fun. Um, Also, the concept of relaxation, where you can let go of being healthy and stop eating salad. It's an invitation to indulge once in a while. It's also maybe a little point of nostalgia because it reminds you of your childhood where you would eat a lot of cakes, creamy foods, and the fact that the background of the painting is light purple in as a wink to the side tables and the coffee table. So all this is the impression I have when I look at the painting. The painter itself, Wayne Thibault, for him, this was about making a statement about a modernized still life series that would reflect mass consumption, because these pieces of cake were, in a lot of his work, are designed in a way that are aligned, which is what how they used to serve in cafeterias. Maybe they still do. I don't know. I haven't been in a cafeteria in 15 years. Then we have a painting on the left side of the fireplace of Austin Eddy. It's called The Endlessness of a Blue Star Strewn Night. Hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. It was painted in 2020. I love the blue background, this deep bleu clan color. It's also a symbol of bringing nature inside and having these very structured lines and the geometry that make the symbol of freedom almost a little rigid. So it creates this unexpected tension because when you see birds, you always imagine them flying in motion and not staying put. But here you have two birds in a straight posture, parallel to each other in the same direction. On this painting, you also have a symbol of the moon. I love the moon. And it represents the feminine energy. And again, this space is owned by a woman. This painting was placed intentionally next to the one with flowers. So the birds are facing the flowers, kind of like a symbiosis of nature, birds, flowers. A little bit about the artist. Austin Eddy is a Brooklyn-based artist, which I love because I live in Manhattan, so we're neighbors. And he painted this piece during the pandemic, the pandemic of 2020. I wanted to specify this in case we're watching this video in a few years and we don't know which pandemic, in case there's a few more coming. And his intention in painting this was a need to escape the seclusion of the city during the time of the pandemic in New York, and the stability that nature represents. Then right next to the painting of the birds, you have a large piece of Jorge Galindo called Ventana al Cielo that was painted also in 2020. I wanted a little bit of a European wink since Jorge Galindo is Spanish. And so this piece is a form of abstract realism. It's still life painted in a very loose way, which makes it so interesting. And as my friend who made me discover Jorge Galindo said, the flowers are painted with a lot of freedom. The painting is huge, so if you're going to paint flowers at such a large scale, it's going to be challenging to catch the viewer's eye, but here it's a complete success. And what stands out is that a subject that has been painted millions of times, flowers, is painted here in a totally different new way, something that hasn't been seen before. And again, for me, it was a matter of bringing nature indoors and the feminine symbolism of flowers, yet painted by a man, which creates it which creates that balance between the masculine and the feminine. On the left side of the fireplace, standing on a wood stand, you have a piece of Ryan Schneider. So here we're going to see a video of him creating the sculpture, which is, for me, the process is almost as interesting as the piece itself. So as we saw, the artist uses an electric saw, which is completely unexpected. And also, for a lot of people, the electrical saw is kind of scary. It's a dangerous tool. It reminds us of horror movies of in the 90s and the early 2000s, or it's a symbol of very masculine men cutting wood in the forest, carpenters, etc. But here, this electrical saw is used to create a very delicate art piece. So when you see the sculpture, it has a raw, in real life, it has a raw, unfinished aspect to it. And its shape is very sharp. But then you have all this colorful paint and it makes it so lively. So the shape for me, when I look at this piece, is a little dramatic, a little scary, spiritual. It reminds us of African masks, Inca sculptures, but then there's all this color that makes it almost joyful and actually quite comforting. It's almost like when you meet someone that you don't know through friends or randomly, and you're kind of challenged by this person. You're a little scared. You don't know if they're nice, or you kind of have some resistance to the energy of this person. And then they see a thing or two that make them relatable for you, and then you can let your guard down. This is exactly how I feel towards this sculpture. For the artist himself, his background is, his inspiration is Cubism. So the color is also here used in a functional way so the viewer can walk around it and find some indications of the change of shape. For the last piece, I love to keep the good news for the end, my favorite parts for the end, dessert for the end, is this piece from Mira Drancy. It's called Revolving Icon First Fist on Earth. I don't know if it's a typo or not, probably First on Earth. It was painted in 2020. I wanted it to be the centerpiece of the room because it's big, it's bold, it's colorful, and it also has mostly cold colors in it. So you can see some green, some blue, some indigo, some violets, and it balances out the warm colors that you're going to typically find in a fireplace underneath it. So the yellow, the orange, and the red of the flames. Since it's at the center of the room, and it's going to be the center of attention because people gather around the fireplace, I kept the same layout as the original designer did. I wanted to be big and proportionate to the rest of the space. A little bit about the artist. Also, she's Brooklyn based, at least she has a studio in Brooklyn. She also goes a lot to LA. And she focuses in her work on giving a cinematic effect to female figures. And a lot of her work is inspired by Ernst Ludwig Kirchner. She was impacted a lot by the female body because probably due to the fact that her mom had 10 home-birthed children, which I thought was fascinating, a fascinating element of her life. And for the story, Mira ran away from home at the age of 16 when she found out that her mother was pregnant with her 10th child. And to quote her, she says, "I thought, what the hell is going on here? Are you ever going to stop having kids?" I just love that little story of her life. And it says a lot about the character and the strength that is put in her paintings.